Elon Musk recently announced a very unique payload for the upcoming test of the Falcon Heavy rocket. This inspired me to create a simulation of this flight using Kerbal Space Program. It is anyone's guess what the exact date for this mission will be. I've chosen January 30th, 2018. You see the Falcon Heavy on the pad at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The Falcon Heavy has 27 Merlin engines that will propel it off the pad. We have been told that the engine start sequence will stagger the ignition, so not all 27 engines ignite simultaneously. In my simulation, I start the outer 18 engines first, and then the remaining 9 engines. Shortly after liftoff, the center engines are throttled down to reduce acceleration and save fuel in the center core. Although the 3 cores of the first stage contain the same amount of fuel, with the center engine throttled down, it will have fuel remaining when the outer 2 cores separate. The initial boost phase should last around 2 minutes, after which the 2 outer cores separate from the center core. Those 2 cores will begin a retro burn to return to the launch site, while the center core continues to push the payload towards low Earth orbit. The center core shuts down its engines, and the second stage separates. The center core has enough remaining fuel to re-enter the atmosphere and land on the SpaceX barge, Of Course I Still Love You. Since the vehicle is in space now, the fairing covering the payload is no longer needed, and it is jettisoned. The second stage Merlin vacuum engine ignites and propels the payload into low Earth orbit. So what is this mysterious payload? In the past, SpaceX launched a wheel of cheese as a demo payload. But this payload is much cooler. That is Elon Musk's original cherry red Tesla Roadster, the first car in space, and probably the last. His intent is to put the car into Mars orbit. Turns out that January 2018 is not the best time to launch a spacecraft, or a car for that matter, to Mars. It requires a lot more delta V than the optimal launch windows. But my simulation shows that it is conceivable that they can boost the car into a transfer orbit that will fly by Mars. The transfer orbit takes about 4,200 delta V from low Earth orbit. My simulation shows about 4,400 delta V left in the second stage. With our launch into a 31-degree inclination orbit in the late afternoon, we coast for about 31 minutes, and then ignite the second stage engine again for trans-Mars injection, just as we pass off the coast of Madagascar. An 81-second burn pushes the craft to Earth escape velocity. Next stop, Mars. The second stage has now done its job, and we can separate the car from its payload adapter while we pass over Australia. The car will drift on a ballistic trajectory for 253 days, at which point it will pass by Mars. It is T plus 253 days, and we are now 11,000 kilometers from Mars. Unfortunately, we are traveling so fast we fly right past Mars and continue on into deep space. We can hope that SpaceX can do a little Jebediah engineering, fasten a communication dish and some cameras on the car. Then we will be treated to some beautiful visuals of Mars as the car passes inside the orbit of Deimos and then into the deep dark.